Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And your family has been brewing beer for 10 generations in a small town in Germany. How did you end up with 3 technical degrees, including a PhD in physics, then come to the United States and become a successful startup entrepreneur? Tell us about your journey, please.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, so I started in Germany many years ago. I'm the son of a German beer brewer, and I was expected to take over the beer brewery, like you would think, but also like an early 20-year-old or late teenager, you are like this with your father, right? You don't accept everything, and so I eventually kind of did what I was always good at school. I started to study math and physics because I was very interested in theory of relativity. And my father thought, okay, it's maybe a little bit a long stretch from physics to beer brewing, but eventually he will come back. And I liked it so much. When I came out of college, I did my PhD because I liked it so much. They offered me a good position at the university, and then right after that, I started a company. My father had to sell his brewery because my brother did basically something very similar. Eventually, my brother and I ended up in entrepreneurship because we come from an entrepreneur family, and that's what you really learn, disregarding of if it is brewing or anything else. And then at some point, we got an offer from an American company, namely Boston Scientific, to sell our company in Germany to Boston Scientific, a very large medical device company. That was about 19 years ago, and so I did. And that's how I came to the States.
And after
we have been here ever since.
And after you sold your company to Boston Scientific, what did you do then? Tell us about
At first, I had golden handcuffs, meaning you have to stay with the company, and they make you kind of transfer things, etc. And I was very bored there. The managers wanted to really take over the company themselves and didn't really want me to do anything. So I was paid for doing nothing there, and I started another company. And I started a total of eight companies over my life, all in healthcare. Of these 8 companies, 5 were successful and very successful, and 3 were not. You have to have those. So I've seen the whole spectrum.
So that's a pretty good batting average, five out of 8 in the startup world. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about Boston Heart Lab. What your story there, when you came in and all the way through and the exit.
So it was a spin out from Tufts University, where they needed a CEO to kind of build the company from the get-go, basically. And we had sales also from the get-go, because it was really very, the scientific result which we marketed was very well researched and had a lot of funding from the National Institute of Health before we actually spun out the company. I think that's one of the key things, to really base a company in healthcare on very solid data. At the end of the day, you always sell data in medicine, right? If you want to sell the better bone screw, the doctor will ask you, tell me why it is better than my old bone screw. You better have good data. And so it was a test, basically, which could tell somebody which of the 6 statins would be most effective for somebody. And it was widely successful. I ran it for several years. It was eventually sold for about $200 million of Eurofins in Europe. Was a lot of fun, and you found us Krings. Thank you very much. Still, what I really liked at Krings came from a competing company, and Krings told me, because I see our products, meaning his and his competing company, and I see yours, I want to come to you. And in those days, we had no money. And so I was asking Max, that's what he did not tell you, also to find somebody who will work for a certain while without pay. And for stock options only. And in America, you can do that. In Germany, you can. But try to find a salesperson who's good, who works for no pay. But because Kring saw the products we had and the products the competing company had, he said, I come to you. 3 months without pay, it doesn't matter at all. At some point, I make it up. And he really did. He was one of the highest paid people in the company. And I'm always happy if a salesperson is one of the highest paid people in the company, because the company strives.
That's great. Great story. I love that. So in your opinion, what are the 3 most important things that you need to start a company and to be successful?
So it starts, as I said already, with very good science. In healthcare, I can only talk about healthcare. I've not started any other companies. My companies were all in healthcare, biopharma, et cetera, et cetera. It starts with very solid science, I think, right? And you pick a big problem with a very good science. It has to have a good market, and it's all about the team, in my view. And the team in a startup world is completely different than the team in a big company. In a small company, your own custodian, you're your own salesperson, you're your own secretary, etc. And I want to have people with whom I can phone at the middle of the night, early in the morning, late in the evening. It doesn't really matter when we do something. Everybody is just simply there and is very passionate about it. This dedication you many times just don't find with people who like to go to the corporate world. And it's stressful, absolutely, for many people, but it can be very, very rewarding. When we sold Boston Scientific, Boston Heart Lab, we made 21 millionaires on the employee side. And that's a very rewarding feeling if you can create that.
Yeah, yeah. Other than, tell me about an occasion where you felt very happy to be an entrepreneur, other than doing well financially.
So Boston Heart Lab again, right? It's not, that was not my only company, by the way, but that here I think about something. So when we had hardly 1 million in revenue, when our competitor had about 100 million in revenue, I was at a trade show where the chief commercialization officer of the other company came to us, and somebody comes with a title like this, I know already there's some ego going on. And he was standing and posting in front of me and said, Wolfgang, isn't this like David against Goliath? And I said, I hope so, because you know who wins. And sure enough, about a year later, we were up at 16 million and they were down respectively. And it continued like this. And we became the bigger company because we had the better product. And that's the beauty of a company in the healthcare space, which has really the better product. It's all about execution now. You have the better product, the data is there, and all you need to do is really kind of execute correctly. Eventually, the customers will come, because in healthcare, they look about the data, look about facts. It's not the fashion industry, it's healthcare. People look about kind of what can I really do for my patient. The other thing is, of course, you have to get through sometimes the FDA, you have to get into the reimbursement system, and you have to get a certain reimbursement code. That are all techniques which you have to think about very early on, but you always find very good consultants there in this field who can help you get the reimbursement strategy or the FDA strategy right.
Talk a little bit about some of the greatest challenges that you've had as a startup CEO.
I think the biggest challenge overall, and a friend of mine just said it very clearly, very nicely, is the double F word: focus and finance. As a small company, you have to focus on this one thing you're good at. And even if you have the platform technology, focus on one thing, that's what you bring forward, and finance the company. I think one of the main reasons why small companies fail is finance. They don't get the right finance together. And so focus on finance, I think, are the two most important parts in bringing a company over high. But the other thing I think is mitigating risk. Try to mitigate every risk in the company, so that the only risk left is the innovation itself. Right? Try to bring in people with experience, people who have done it before, who know what they're doing. They're not learning on the job. So if then at the end of the day the company really fails, it was the innovation. It was just simply there was something wrong in the innovation. Too early. Couldn't raise enough money for that because it was not good enough, or whatever it was. But try to kind of eliminate all the other risks and drive forward.
Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing as managing partner at Carlyle?
So with many of the family offices, in those days, you didn't call them family offices. In those days, they were just rich people who have invested in me. They kind of pitched me here and there some other interesting companies, or even said, Wolfgang, can you look at this very, very cool bio company? They work on a molecule. I can't even pronounce the name. It's really cool. What is that? And so I helped them over the years. and developed what developed out of this is kind of a core group of some families where we invest together, and I typically put the investments together all in healthcare. We kind of then merged with another group out of New York. The name is Carlyle. It has nothing to do with a big asset group, a management group, by the way. So these are about 60 families who really care about issues of national and global importance. And what I do there, I put the investments together, and we invest in companies such as these companies I've been running, early stage companies, A round, B rounds, sometimes C rounds, etc., and bring in expertise from the outside, etc. And really look for some things which are really completely novel, new, and especially because I do the investments where I have the feeling I can really add with my experience I have over the years, the good and the ugly, that I can really sit on the board and can add to the first-time CEO, for instance. So
you're enjoying that.
It's a lot of fun.
Good, good, good. So it's been said in the startup world, when you've worked a 40-hour week, it's usually lunchtime on Wednesday. People are putting a hell of a lot of hours in. Can you talk about,
Max?
we know that, we both know that. Can you talk about work-life balance? Is there work-life balance when you're doing a startup?
Well, the first thing coming to my mind, as flying around me here, the first thing coming to my mind, I remember an occasion where I came into the company and nobody was there, and I was so angry that everybody's late and what's going on. He said I was kind of really angry, and until I realized it was Saturday morning and they kind of just were at home. It was the weekend, right? It is what it is, and my wife luckily got used to the whole thing. I think that's one of the key factors there. My wife knows exactly what we are doing. She's doing our website. She does in the early stages doing our promotional material. If you involve your family in a certain way, that daddy is not the one who's always away and kind of on his computer on Zoom or wherever. But the family knows what's going on, the good and the bad. I talked with her about kind of what does not work, etc., and how I feel about a certain company. If I want to get out of here, or we have to sell the whole thing, or we should kind of really bring it forward. I think that's very important, that you have kind of the stability in your private life, which helps you to manage in your business life the stress you sometimes have. Then there, of course, there are the typical techniques like meditation, etc. I don't do that, but I go into my yard, especially right now in the in COVID times, where we are from one Zoom meeting to the other Zoom meeting, and in between having 10 minutes, just going out, taking a deep breath, being in the yard, doing some things with some plants, etc. It's a wonderful, that's the good balance.
Got it. Got one last question from somebody here through the chat room, Sergey Sime. I'm sorry if I'm botching the pronunciation of your name. And he wants to know that talking about execution, how do you get growing young organizations to execute well with agility? How do you create 100% alignment, traction, accountability, and discipline?
It's all about the team, right? It's all about the team. The team has to work together. A good team, in my view, fights fiercely about things, but then afterwards goes out and has a beer or wine or whatever, kind of understands each other well, and understands the process, that it's all about the issues of the company and not about individuals. I've seen in many big companies that it is many times more about the individuals, and there's a lot of politics involved, etc. You have to cut that out in a small team. I think that's really important. I think there are two pain points, especially when companies are underfunded and you have to kind of cut corners, and people don't feel comfortable with that, and it leads to aggression sometimes even. And the other one is a very fast growth. We had that in Boston Heart Lab, for instance, right? Suddenly we just couldn't keep up with the growth. We got all these samples coming in and we had to measure them. and it led to the fact that everybody had to work over the weekend until we got really the right people in, and I was able to get the right funding in. Funding a company which is on a high growth trajectory is obviously easier than early on, but it creates a lot of stress. And I don't know how many times I had to talk with customers who were shouting at us. I've sent this sample 4 weeks ago and still not done, and I was told it's 2 days turnaround time. So keeping a cool head, having the right team, having the right coworkers, and having the right backing from your in your private life, I think is very important.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and your insight, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, Wolfgang.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do